You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's Pottober the 2nd, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Education and News. Good morning, Rev Cindy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Al?
I'm doing okay. I looked at the calendar and thought, oh yeah, right, it's October, yeah. Pottober, Croptober.
Croptober, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, some people are going to be starting their crop out soon, and
Right.
to quote a friend, are going to be trimming until Christmas.
No. Oh, that poor friend. Yes. Yeah, and that could be successful garden. Who knows? So, and yourself, were you going to be getting indulged in any Croptober happening, whether it's yours or
I
helping?
haven't grown cannabis in a few years since I moved into the new house. I'll probably get back into it next year, but I mean, like, I'll go help friends. I have friends that grow, and that's a nice Friday evening of sharing a few joints, and everybody just sits and chats, and we all trim while we chat. And
Exactly. A social gathering. Instead of playing cards or
Trimming,
grow-up game, you're playing trimming.
trimming.
Trimming, exactly.
See who can fill the bucket first.
Yep, sure. All right. Well, we should get started with our news, and here we go. First story of the day.
Coming to us from the Intelligencer, injunction served to block the OPP raids on Tyendinaga Mohawk cannabis operations.
Yes, this is an update of what's going on. We reported on Monday about this. So, an injunction has been served upon the OPP and Tyendinaga Police Services blocking or seeking to block police raids and seizures of cannabis operations on Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. The legal challenge comes after a series of raids, arrests, and seizures of large quantities of cannabis on the reserve last week.
A party known as Kayan-Kanhaka Nation served the Nepean OPP office on September 26 with an interlocutory injunction, a legal document seeking a hearing with the Ontario Supreme Court of Justice. The legal document challenges the authority of the OPP, Tyendinaga Police Services, and Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team on the grounds that the territory and its residents are protected under federal Indigenous statutes.
The injunction is requesting the court restrain the Ontario Provincial Police, their servants, agents, or representatives from seizing, removing, interfering with, or otherwise exercising control over property which is under the control of the Tyendinaga Reservation pending a determination of this proceedings or any further order of court. Now, the applicant submits in the injunction that any Indigenous person on the Tyendinaga Reservation has rights to possession and enjoyment of their property on the reserved lands, which are protected pursuant to S35 of the Charter and S89 of the Indian Act and principles of constitutional law recognizing the protection of Aboriginal treaty rights.
The claimants argue Section 89(1) of the Indian Act provides that the personal property of an Indian or band situated on a reserve is not subject to charge, pledge, seizure. The injunction is also requesting the court restrain police from arresting, stopping, prohibiting, or frustrating the livelihoods or agricultural endeavors of the Indigenous people on the Tyendinaga Reserve, for example, from engaging in lawful activities on its lawful territory.
According to the injunction, on September the 22nd to the 25th, the Ontario Provincial Police executed search warrants and utilized farm equipment to destroy plants and agricultural materials on a number of First Nation farms. The Kenya Nation authorized and continues to authorize agricultural activities on Tyendinaga territory. Yeah, go ahead.
Bill Dixon, Media Relations Coordinator for the OPP East Region, said by phone with the Intelligencer early Tuesday morning he was aware of the injunction being served but deferred media requests to Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory authorities for comment. On Tuesday, R. McDonald Miracle, chief of the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, told the Intelligencer his band council had no part in serving the injunction and was, in fact, in favor of the police action to date.
Chief said in a brief interview, Council supports the ongoing work that the police are doing concerning the grow-ops because the concern by policing officials is organized crime, and so we're doing it in the interest of safety for our community. Injunction applicant Kenya Kayak Nation describes itself in the injunction as a First Nations organization pursuant to UNDRP, which is the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
It said it is a collective authorized by the Kenya Kahaka Nation, and it's governed by the Kenyaneer Koa, which is the nation's constitution, which governs the entirety of Tyendinaga territory. In a joint statement, meanwhile, by the OPP and Tyendinaga Police Services on September 26, police thanked Aquasan Mohawk Police Service and the Hiawatha First Nation Policing Services for keeping our community safe. The role of the latter two police services was not elaborated on in regard to the police operations in Tyendinaga.
Police said in the joint statement, tens of thousands of illegal cannabis plants have been seized, as well as a handgun with high-quantity magazine. Investigators continue to dismantle extensive illegal cannabis operations that have been taking place on our lands. This is according to police. The cannabis operations were creating environmental impacts within the territory, including a stone quarry in which the water was completely depleted, negatively affecting the water table in the area.
To date, the OPP have released no details as to the number of charges laid, if any, names of those who may have been charged, nor further information regarding any equipment and vehicles seized during the raids. One Mohawk woman who is a farmer and small business owner confirmed in a social media post that she had been charged by police after her property was raided in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory.
The Intelligencer is withholding publication of the woman's name pending the outcome of any court proceedings, as per Post Media's editorial policy, not to name charged persons unless they have been convicted on the charges in court. In a post, the woman said that in her defense, she is not part of organized crime.
I am a mother, a farmer, and a small business owner who is trying to self-sustain on my own lands. I have no criminal record. I farm my property myself, and I have not rented it out to any outside organization. I help community members whenever I can, not for recognition, but because it is simply the right thing to do, she wrote. Despite this, I was the only person charged from my property. I have been accused of cultivating and was arrested and handcuffed in front of my children by the OPP. I want to be clear. I was not stealing water. I have never had any guns on my property. Every person I hired to work with me had no criminal record.
These facts about me and how I run my life and work, this ordeal has shaken my trust. For a long time, I was led to believe by members of the band council that I was doing what I was doing was acceptable. I followed the guidance I was given. I acted in good faith. Now I'm being portrayed as a criminal. I do not understand this reversal, and I'm asking for clarity and fairness.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, like she's, like she said, she's farming on her own. She's growing her own cannabis on her own property.
Yeah.
That's not against the law.
No. No, we can all do that. And, you know, she was acting under guidance from her elders, following rules that were set forth in front of her. And my heart is broken for her. Arrested and handcuffed in front of her children.
Yep. All we can do is keep reporting what's going on and go from there. So, all righty. We'll get the next story all lined up here. One more step. There we go. Here it comes. Last click.
Coming to us from Cannabis Law Report. The DOJ asks federal court to further delay lawsuit on cannabis rescheduling process as Trump weighs reform proposal.
The Department of Justice has agreed to further postpone a case challenging the administrative process behind the cannabis rescheduling proposal being considered by the Trump administration. In a joint filing with the U.S. District Court for Western District of Washington, DOJ and plaintiff Panacea Plant Services founder and CEO David Hildreth said that because there haven't been any recent advancements in the broader rescheduling issue, the separate litigation related to administrative procedures should continue to be stayed through the end of the year.
That is not necessarily a reflection of the status of the Trump administration's rescheduling process. Rather, it is directly responsive to litigation over how the federal government approaches scheduling actions. The president said late last month that he would be making a decision on the overarching proposal to move cannabis to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act within weeks. But for now, because the administrative hearing process remains stalled, both DOJ and PPS told the court that that the stay should be kept in place until January 27th, 2026, when another joint report from the parties will be due.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, hopefully eventually it gets there. Gets descheduled instead of rescheduled.
They should have been there before Canada, but you know.
Oh, yeah. I know.
We the leaders.
Yeah. It's just crazy, but hey, what can we do, right? So all we can do is report what's going on. Talking about that, here we go. Next story is up.
Coming to us from Marijuana Moment. Feds call cannabis a deadly drug and say even medical cannabis has serious consequences. Sometimes it's hard to read this stuff with a straight face.
Federal officials are calling cannabis a deadly drug, touting their efforts to seize it and other illegal substances while also warning that possessing cannabis, even for medical use, carries serious consequences. As President Donald Trump considers cannabis rescheduling proposal, and after he posted a video on the health effects of CBD, the Department of Homeland Security and Customs Borders Protection are sending a conflicting message about cannabis.
Are they ever? In a press release about an August surge in drug seizures that was sent out on Tuesday, DHS said that CBP, as part of its mission to stop harmful drugs from entering the United States, was announcing that seizures of deadly drugs, including fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, cannabis, increased substantially from July to August. That rhetoric, as it concerns cannabis, departs from how most people view and compare the plant with other listed substances that can be associated with overdose deaths. By the federal government's own admission in the past, cannabis has not on its own caused a fatal overdose.
Yeah, the CBP says that cartels are increasingly desperate to keep doing business, but the Trump administration is stopping their deadly operations. While looping together cannabis and drugs like fentanyl might raise eyebrows, cartel-related crime associated with cannabis has been on consistent talking point in Congress. In fact, it was the subject of the House Homeland Security Subcommittee on Oversight, Investigations, and Accountability hearing last month that focused on a so-called invasion of Chinese and Mexican cartels via illicit cannabis operations.
Secretary Noem and the Department of Homeland Security are fulfilling President Trump's promise to make America safe again by dismantling drug cartels and stopping the flow of deadly drugs into American communities. DHS, this is coming from DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. She also continues to say, thanks to President Trump, fewer American families will be torn apart by addiction, fewer lives will be lost to overdoses, and fewer profits will go to violent cartels. Separately, the CBP posted a reminder on social media on Tuesday that cautioned travelers against bringing cannabis across the border.
Attention travelers, did you know that marijuana is still a controlled substance under federal law? This means that selling, possessing, producing, or distributing both medical and recreational cannabis is illegal. Think twice before crossing the border with cannabis. Doing so could lead to serious consequences like seizure, hefty fines, or even arrest. Plus, it might affect your ability to enter the U.S. Stay informed and safe, and know before you go.
Yeah, leave the Canadian or Mexican cannabis at home and just buy it when you get there.
Correct.
Yeah. The messages from DHS and CBP aren't entirely surprising, as the agencies have maintained a staunch criminalization mentality when it comes to cannabis, even amid reconsideration of the federal rescheduling of cannabis and other comments from the president suggesting that there are outsized penalties for possession and use of the plant. Back in January, for example, DHS and CBP urged the federal court to dismiss a lawsuit from licensed New Mexico cannabis businesses who claimed the agencies have been unconstitutionally seizing state-regulated cannabis products and detaining industry workers at interior checkpoints.
CBP's actions against state legal cannabis businesses has also received pushback from other members in Congress as well. In 2023, the agency also published an overview of issues related to the non-intoxicating cannabinoid CBD, warning that such products remain unregulated and may contain concentrations of THC that could show up in a drug test for employees.
However, CBP did update its workplace policy last year, narrowing the window of employment ineligibility over the past cannabis use from 2 years to 3 months. A GOP senator subsequently called on the agency to reverse that decision.
Why?
Yeah.
There we go. End of that story. Yeah, dangerous. Coincides from cannabis, from recreational use or medical use of cannabis. So I don't know where the dangerous comes in. All righty, here we go. We're making our way to the next story. Hopefully this one behaves, because every once in a while this website gives me problems.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay, coming to us from MSN, psilocybin targets brain circuits to relieve chronic pain and depression, study suggests.
Yeah. Researchers at Penn Medicine have identified specific brain circuits that are impacted by psilocybin, the active compound found in magic mushrooms, which could lead to new paths forward for pain and mental health management options. Chronic pain affects more than 1.5 billion people worldwide and is often deeply entangled with depression and anxiety, creating a vicious cycle that amplifies suffering and impairs quality of life. The study from the Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania, published in the Nature Neuroscience, offers new insight into ways to disrupt this cycle. Now, go ahead.
As an anesthesiologist, I frequently care for people undergoing surgery who suffer from both chronic pain and depression. In many cases, they're not sure which condition came first, but often one makes the other worse. This is coming from Joseph Chikon, who's an MD, PhD, and assistant professor of anesthesiology and critical care at Penn, and a senior author of this study. This new study offers hope. These findings open the door to developing new non-opiate, non-addictive therapies, as psilocybin and related psychedelics are not considered addictive.
Oh, good to know that. Now, in studies using mice with chronic nerve injury and inflammatory pain, researchers found that a single dose of psilocybin reduced both pain and pain-induced anxiety and depression-like behaviors, with those benefits lasting almost 2 weeks. Psilocybin acts by gently activating specific brain signals called serotonin receptors. Now, Chichon goes on to say that unlike other drugs that fully turn these signals on or off, psilocybin acts more like a dimmer switch, turning it to just the right level.
Mm-hmm. To pinpoint where the effects originated, researchers injected psilocin, the active substance into which the body converts psilocybin, into different regions of the central nervous system. The team used advanced fluorescent microscopy, a technique that uses glowing dyes to see and capture neuronal activity to see chronic pain neurons spontaneously fire.
Cool. When psilocin was injected directly into the prefrontal cortex of the brain, specifically the interior cingulate cortex, a part of the brain that produces pain or processes pain and emotions, it provided the same pain relief and mood improvements as when psilocybin was given to the whole body. Researchers also injected psilocin into the spinal cord, but it didn't have the same calming effect.
Wow. Psilocybin may offer meaningful relief for patients by bypassing the site of injury altogether and instead modulating brain circuits that process pain, while lifting the ones that help you feel better, giving you relief from both pain and low mood at the same time. Researchers believe the findings from this study could also inform therapies for other conditions involving dysregulated brain circuits, such as addiction or post-traumatic stress injuries. They go on to add that more research is needed, of course, always, to determine the effectiveness of psilocybin.
Yeah, he goes on to say that in my anesthesiology practice, I often see that both pain and mood symptoms can worsen following surgery due to the psychological and physiological stress imposed by the procedure. While psilocybin shows promise as a treatment for both pain and depression, it remains certain whether such therapies would be safe, effective, or feasible in the context of surgery and anesthesia. The Penn team plans to investigate optimal dosing strategies, long-term effects, and the ability of the brain to rewire itself in sustaining these benefits in rodent models.
While these findings are encouraging, we don't know how long-lived psilocybin's effects are. Well, you know what? They're saying once every 2 weeks instead of once every 8 hours. I'm in. Or how multiple doses might be needed to adjust brain pathways involved in chronic pain for a longer-lasting solution. And this was said by author Steve Weiser, who's the co-author and a Penn Neuroscience PhD. And you can get more information here. The single-dose psilocybin rapidly and sustainably relieves and antidepressive-like behaviors in most models of chronic pain. And you can click this little link here if you go to the story and learn more.
Yep, there you go.
And I'm pointing to the link on my screen, like, our people can see it, but
Exactly. Yeah, and unfortunately, we can't have that posted at Psychedelics Cannabis Education News because it's mainstream media. So, the Facebook thing, right? So,
yeah.
We're Canadian, eh? All righty, that's it for the first half. We're about to take a break. You get to be able to hear from our sponsors, and then when we get back, we got 4 more stories. We're going to be going to Thailand, Germany, Europe, and we're going to learn some more about psilocybin when we get back. You're watching Psychedelics Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats. And look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, we're back with some more psychedelics and cannabis educational news. And also, I noticed, thanks for the thumbs up, Rob, as well. Just so you know, Cindy, Rob is new to the Apple family. Rob purchased a Apple, and he took it camping, and they created a location called the Apple Bar, and they would hang out at the Apple Bar throughout.
I love it. I love it. Welcome to the Apple family. What a great product.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to move on to the news, and here we go. First story is ready to go.
Coming to us from Business of Cannabis. Hope for Thailand. Cannabis champion. Ooh, here we go. And Newton becomes prime minister.
Yes. Thailand's political landscape has seen 3 changes of power in just 1 year. The latest being the removal of their former prime minister, which is the daughter of the former prime minister, over the handling of a border conflict with Cambodia. Now, on September the 5th, 2025, former health minister and architect of the cannabis decriminalization, Anton, was elected as the country's new prime minister for a 4-month transitional government. His approach was secured with the support of the opposition People's Party, on the condition that Parliament will be dissolved within 4 months and new elections called. Oh, no, that means yeah.
For Thailand's cannabis industry, which has faced sharp restrictions in recent months, Newton's elevation, is being seen as a hopeful turn. After cannabis was legalized for medical purposes in June of 2022, up to 18,000 shops opened across the country, many of them operating far beyond the medical remit due to unclear regulations. Politicians soon moved to rein in the sector in June of 2025. Health Minister Somsak introduced a law that reclassified cannabis flowers as a controlled substance. Retailers were required to supply cannabis only to patients with a doctor's prescription and to report the origin, intended use, and stock of their products.
Now, who's the leader of the the B Party, has previously served as Deputy Prime Minister, Health Minister, and Interior Minister. Although considered conservative on social issues, he has been one of Thailand's most vocal advocates of cannabis decriminalization, arguing for the medical benefits of the plant and supporting limited private cultivation and retail sales. He has consistently linked cannabis reform to a broader economic and social goals, including reducing prison overcrowding and stimulating domestic growth. Thailand would actually be the most suitable location in the world for growing high-quality cannabis, he has said.
While the recreational market that flourished after decriminalization alarmed parts of Thailand society and promoted political backlash, Newton has repeatedly reminded lawmakers that they themselves voted for the reform and should approach cannabis policy cautiously. The recent tightening of the rules has included the closure of hundreds of cannabis shops and stricter enforcement against illegal exports, according to Der Farang. Yet, following Newton's election, industry groups see signs of a more supportive climate.
Well, I have to agree with them. Yeah, this guy was the guy who gave away 1 million seeds. So now, the Secretary General of Thai's Cannabis Future Network said that the appointment makes it unlikely that cannabis will be reclassified as a narcotic. The tone of the authorities had already changed noticeably since his election victory, he says. So there you go. Operators in Bangkok's tourist areas have expressed similar optimism. Ratampan Senrak, who runs the Highland Cafe on Kashan Road, says the real issue is not further legislation, but enforcement. Many legal businesses, he noted, have been pushed into illegality due to the cost of complying with stricter cultivation standards and prescription-only requirements.
Upon taking office, Newton identified rising living costs, tensions on the Cambodian border, and the threats posed by drug trafficking, human trafficking, and fraud as his top priorities, warning that these issues endanger the well-being of the nation. He called on MPs to put aside their differences and act on interests of the people, acknowledging that a minority government faces limits in Parliament. Analysts suggest he may be positioning himself for a longer-term role. This person, who is a professor at a university, argued that Newton is likely to use his cabinet appointment in key portfolios such as finance, energy, and foreign affairs to extend the party's influence beyond the transitional period.
His stance on cannabis, however, is already clear. The day after his election, Anton appeared at a meeting with incoming cabinet members wearing a shirt patterned with cannabis leaves, a symbolic gesture seen as reassurance to an industry under pressure.
I like this PM. That's awesome. Shows up in cannabis gear.
I knew that when he was in before that he made major changes, and when he lost that election after that, and the new guy had threatened to shut everything down, and they won. Some people were going like, "What the hell? What's going on here?" And so it's good to see him back in
power
on the cannabis front of things and get that opening. Like, because when we reported the last we reported on Thailand, this other fellow was in there, and he was converting things sort of back the way they were before Anton was in there the first time. So, yeah. So it just shows that just because you got cannabis legalization in your country now, that means that it's going to stay that way, right? It could change, right? So, okay, here we go. We're going to head off to the next story, and it is set.
Yeah, coming to us from Marijuana Moment. German government reports shows cannabis legalization hasn't increased youth use or traffic accidents.
Good. German officials have released a report on the impact of the nation's cannabis legalization law, finding that fears from opponents about use, traffic safety, and more have been so far proved largely unfounded. However, the illicit market has not meaningfully diminished under the limited legal regulatory model that has been rolled out in the country to date. The interim report, which was required under the cannabis law enacted last year, assessed a series of health, public safety, and economic factors associated with the end of prohibition.
Among the most notable findings in the document published on Monday is the fact that youth cannabis use has continued to decline, even after possession and home cultivation were legalized for adults and social clubs offering access to members opened. Further, no clear changes in the previous trend in cannabis consumption among adults could be observed. The report, conducted on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Health, says, and this is according to a translation.
Yeah. Now, the percentage increase in adults who have consumed cannabis in the last 12 months, which has been observed since approximately 2011, is likely to continue without any drastic changes, it says. Now, a separate report study conducted by the German federal health officials also found that rates of cannabis use declined among youth after the country legalized adult use cannabis, contradicting one of the more common prohibitionist arguments against the reform. Now,
Mm.
another finding of the new legislation evaluation concerns traffic safety, with researchers determining that there's been no meaningful change in incidents on the roadways associated with the policy change.
In the area of road safety, partial legalization has so far shown no significant changes in self-reported driving under the influence of cannabis or in the number of people killed or injured in road traffic, so says the report. Early data on the impact of legalization on the illicit market indicates that the law has not yet made a significant contribution to the displacement of the black market intended by the legislature, the report found.
One reason for the continued presence of the illegal market could be related to how Germany's legalization law is being rolled out, with a limited number of social clubs that grow cannabis for members to consume, but without a comprehensive commercial industry that could provide wider access to adults. And even if broad retail launches, it may take time to substantially transition consumers to the legal market, which has been the case in Canada and the U.S. states that have enacted reform.
For now, if Germany intends to substantially shift people to the legal market, the framework for the approval and operation of cultivation associations must be simplified, the report says. It also advises that based on current information, there's not a need to change the possession limit of 25 grams. Ooh.
Ooh, they should allow at least an ounce. What do you think? It's so
I think
close.
so.
Yeah. Now, the first interim report published today confirms that the legalization of cannabis was the right and long overdue step, according to MP Carmen Wig of the Social Democratic Party. She goes on to say that the independent evaluation shows no significant increase in cannabis consumption among adults, or even a decrease among minors. No noticeable negative effects on the health of adults, and significantly fewer criminal proceedings, she says. But the core message is clear. Partial legalization protects health and improves the ability of the constitutional state to act. But Federal Health Minister Nina Workin, a member of the anti-legalization Christian Democratic Union, says the results so far show worrying trends despite the lack of further data in some areas.
We will have to discuss possible need for action together with the coalition parties and the security authorities, she said. Germany's former health minister, Karl Lauterbach, who spearheaded the government's legalization plan, responded to the report saying cannabis consumption among young people continues to decline despite legalization.
That was to be expected. Other countries are showing the same trend, he says. If one wants to combat the black market, cultivation clubs must not be further obstructed. Cannabis consumption is not a crime. Former MP Christine Luke, who was one of the most vocal champions of legalization, says the report shows there is no urgent need for action.
Particularly encouraging. Yeah. What was that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, as I said, particularly encouraging, children and adolescents are not consuming cannabis more frequently than before partial legalization. The trend is rather declining, she said. A final report on the impact of legalization in Germany is expected in April of 2028.
Yeah, okay. Germany's legalization law took effect in April 24, allowing adults to possess and grow certain amounts of cannabis, and social clubs began to open, providing members with legal access to cannabis products. Now, following a pivotal national election earlier this year, political parties that were cooperating to form a new coalition government announced that they would be conducting an open-ended evaluation of the country's cannabis legalization law, meaning that at least for now, officials will allow the policy to stay in place as it should. There we go. They mentioned the one person said there that they didn't like what was going on, that the trends were going in the wrong direction. If cannabis consumption is down in kids, in the youth, and accidents and all that are increasing. Right? Where's the wrong trend? Beats me. And as far as their social clubs, I think it's somewhere around about 750 applications have been submitted. There's over 200 that have been approved. There is an average of about 275 people per club so far. They broke it down in another story. They broke it right down into the amount. Yeah. Now I see we got a comment here from a Ryan Peterson. He says, "Why don't states just legalizing follow other states that have been in use for years? Why doesn't Minnesota follow Washington State's and Colorado legislation?" But just so you know, Ryan, our federal government here in Canada did go down to the Washington States and Colorado, and exactly. Why don't other states go take a look?
Yeah, ego. It's as simple as ego. People over in one state think that they can do it better than people in the other state, so they start fresh and they try to make it better.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the United States should just federally legalize it straight across the border.
Be done. Yeah,
and just like we did here in Canada, the provinces, for them it would be the states, does have some control and does make some changes.
Yep.
Right? They could do the same thing down there, and hopefully at some time things get turned around. So, all right, we'll move on to the next story. Here we go. It's ready.
Coming to us from UC Health Today, can psilocybin help patients with advanced cancer?
I hope so. There we go. Can psilocybin help people with advanced cancer or coping with anxiety, depression, fear of death, and loss of hope? That's the key question that a large national clinic trial aims to answer.
The trial, which is taking place at the University of Colorado and the New York University, is exploring whether the psychedelic compound in magic mushrooms can help cancer patients. The National Cancer Institute is funding the trial, and researchers are continuing to enroll patients. The study is the nation's largest clinical trial exploring psilocybin use in cancer patients.
When people think of psychedelic mushrooms, many may think of wild trips full of swirling colors, dreamlike states, or terror-filled encounters with imaginary beings. But in recent years, medical experts have been exploring whether psychedelics, including psilocybin, can help people who are coping with treatment-resistant depression. The cancer study focuses on a subset of these people, advanced cancer patients, who have anxiety that is also fueling depression.
Dr. Stacy Fisher, geriatric and palliative care specialist at UC Health University of Colorado, is leading the psilocybin clinical trial with two other experts, Jim Grigsby, who has a doctorate in psychology and is a professor at University of Colorado, Denver, and Dr. Stephen Ross, who is a clinical professor of psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry at the New York University Grossman School of Medicine. Fisher said additional research on psychedelics like psilocybin is vital because some people do not respond well to traditional therapies. Just to clarify things, Dr. Fisher, psilocybin is the traditional therapy and they don't respond well to modern drugs.
Yeah. Now, antidepressant medications like SSRIs often have no benefit or very little benefit for those patients, says Fisher, who is also a professor of medicine and intern medicine at the University of Colorado. There are real limits to our current pharmacological treatments, Fisher says.
Yeah, are they ever? As for psychotherapy, it can have modest benefits for some patients, Fisher said, but it's often a longer process, and especially when people aren't feeling well, it can be really hard to make the gains we're looking for, she said.
Advanced cancer also makes it difficult for patients to use exercise to clear out the clouds of depression. They are facing physical challenges, Fisher says. When your body can no longer do the exercise, that's another thing to grieve.
Yeah. Yeah. Cancer patients in the current clinical trial have 3 preparatory therapy sessions before they receive a 25 milligram dose of synthetic form of psilocybin or a placebo. For the 8-hour dosing session, patients enter a quiet, comfortable room, wear eye shades, and listen through headphones to a created playlist of music. Pardon me. 2 therapists sit with the patients throughout the session, encouraging them to fully pay attention to whatever issues may arise. If it seems necessary, the therapist can also administer anti-anxiety medicines, in which Fisher called the highly unlikely chance a patient needs them.
The treatment doesn't end when patients leave the dosing room. The same therapists meet with patients multiple times for a series of follow-up integration sessions that Fisher says are crucial elements of the treatment. We call it integration because it is an opportunity for patients to integrate the experience of the dosing session into the larger context of their lives, she says.
Yeah, the Center of Psychedelic Research has assumed a major role in training people to facilitate psychedelic-assisted mental health care. The center operates a 16-week program organized by Vivian Hsu, Director of Education and Training in the University of Colorado Denver Center for Psychedelic Research. That is the first in the state approved by the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies under the Natural Medicine Health Act, which was passed in 2022. Grinsby said the facilitator training program is a vital part of administering psychedelics ethically. The idea, decades old, is that people taking psychedelics have a much better chance for a fruitful experience in a safe physical and social setting, accompanied by individuals with whom they have established trust.
These kinds of interactions contribute to a feeling of security, safety, and confidence in the people who are conducting the study, according to Grimsby. So, with all the careful preparation, what do patients with advanced cancer experience after taking psilocybin? Fisher does not know which patients received the dose of psilocybin versus the placebo and can't comment on any individual's experience in the trial.
Ross's 2016 study, however, reported in the Journal of Psychopharmacology, found that patients quickly experienced less depression, as well as decreased cancer-related existential distress, increased spiritual well-being and quality of life, and improved attitudes towards death. The effects potentially lasted as long as 8 months after treatment, the authors said.
Some patients with Ross's study also reported mystical type experiences that contributed to decreasing their symptoms of depression and anxiety. Fisher says that people often describe the experience as ineffable or beyond words. It's the idea that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves, that we were all connected, and that this isn't a subjective belief, but an objective reality.
Such reports, often involving people experiencing a loss of ego, have roots that stretch far back in time, Grinsby said. They are subjectively very similar to the kinds of experiences that have been reported around the world by people of different religions and philosophical orientations, he said.
And I've lost you. Oh, there we are. Research into psychedelics in the 1950s also included descriptions of people having mystical type experiences. Decades later, Dr. Roland Griffiths, professor of the Departments of Psychiatry and Neurosciences at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, documented in a 2008 study spontaneously occurring mystical experiences among volunteers who took psilocybin under controlled conditions. Volunteers called these mystical excursions among the most personally meaningful and spiritually significant experiences of their lives. Griffiths and his co-authors wrote, and they produced positive changes in attitudes, mood, altruism, behavior, and life satisfaction.
Grinsby emphasized that mystical experiences with psilocybin are relatively infrequent, and while they can have profound therapeutic effects, he does not believe they are a prerequisite for people finding relief from anxiety, depression, moral distress, and other symptoms. There is something about the nature of the psychedelic experience itself that has therapeutic effects, Grinsby said. I agree.
Yeah. Warning that almost anything we can say about the oversimplifies it, he says. Psychedelics seem to drive in some people a loss of ego and enhanced cognitivity between areas of the brain. The changes also center on neuroplasticity, the brain's malleability, which enables it to change thoughts, form new connections, and alter perception and memories.
Fisher said the broad scope of research into the therapeutic power of psychedelics puts the lie to the old anti-drug commercial that featured a split screen showing an egg in a pan with no heat under it, your brain, and a frying aid, your brain on drugs. Actually, when you look at functional MRIs of what's happening when people have taken a psychedelic, it's like their whole brain is lit up with connections, she said.
Now, the current trial is far from one-off. It extends a long line of inquiry about using psychedelics to treat mental health conditions, says Grimsby, who is executive director at the University of Colorado Center for Psychedelic Research. Now, the University of Saskatchewan at Regina, here in Canada, conducted pioneering research on psychedelics as treatments for anxiety and other mental health issues and alcoholism in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
In 60s, says Grimsby, who earned the Master of Arts degree in psychology there in 1976.
Yeah.
All those years. 75
I,
years later, and we're still doing this. Like, what?
Absolutely. That's because in the 50s and 60s, the people that were doing it got shut down, like hardcore shut down. Tim Leary, and we're only finally picking it back up now. And people are paying attention, and they're paying attention in a much better way. So Grimsby said, I found that early on there had been about 1,000 research papers published on the subject, mostly on LSD and mescaline. Thank you, Tim Leary. That work was stymied in the early 1970s, mostly by political opposition and public fears about drug use, Grimsby said.
There you go. Exactly what you said. Yeah. Now, interest in psychedelics as a treatment for mental health conditions, such as an aid to palliative care for patients with debilitating diseases, slowly emerged in the 1990s. For example, in 1992, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies launched an FDA-approved study of the psychedelic MDMA to treat physical pain with psychological distress in end-stage cancer patients. Mm-hmm. The principal investigator for the MAPS trial, Dr. Charles Grob, professor of clinical psychiatry at the Harvard UCLA Medical Center, went on to be lead author that used psilocybin to treat anxiety in patients with advanced stage cancer. A third, currently underway, studies psilocybin as a treatment for demoralization in patients nearing the end of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Grigsby, who co-led a trial of MDMA-assisted therapy to treat PTSD, co-edited a book with Grob that surveys the use of psychedelics to ease a wide range of mental health challenges posed by anxiety, depression, end-of-life fears, post-traumatic stress injuries, and substance use disorders. A 2015 New Yorker article and subsequent book by Michael Pollan that examined psilocybin and other psychedelics as treatments for psychiatric disorders stirred the public's interest, in the medicines, Grigsby said. Indeed, Fisher said Pollan's original article fired in her a sense of excitement, especially with its stories of patients with serious cancer losing their fear of death after receiving a dose of psilocybin under monitored care.
Wow. As clinicians, we bear witness to this. We listen, says Fisher, who has worked in palliative care for 25 years. We want to help to relieve those problems. That's been a real challenge because we don't have interventions and our tools are pretty limited. I'm looking at our time there. I'm just going to cut this story a little bit short. It is a bit long, but
really informative.
Very informative. Exactly. It looked like it had
goes on for a while yet.
Yeah, exactly. I just took a look at it. So, alrighty, we will then move on to the next story, and we'll get that covered, and then the day will be over. All right, here we go. Next story, or the last story of the day.
Yeah, coming to us from Business of Cannabis. The European Union to establish adult use cannabis pathways for member states.
All right. With increasing numbers of countries embracing cannabis, the European Union is launching a toolkit to help national policymakers frame their adult use legislation. In doing so, it is aligning with the continent's changing cannabis landscape as Germany, the Netherlands, Malta, Czechia, Luxembourg, and non-EU neighbor Switzerland all developed their own recreational cannabis infrastructure.
Yeah. It is also in tune with an acknowledgement by the United Nations bodies that punitive prohibition has failed, and needs to be replaced with a harm reduction approach to drug control. Created by the European Union Drugs Agency, the toolkit is to be known as Canapool, and is designed to deliver an evidence-based approach to continental cannabis liberalization.
The EUDA says its creation is the result of the changing public opinion and a focus on a harm reduction approach to drug use. The development has been welcomed by Michael Grief, Manager Director of the German Cannabis Business Association. He told the Business of Cannabis, the Canapool project marks a careful step into the right direction for European cannabis regulation.
Absolutely. While drug policy is a sensitive matter traditionally reserved to the national regulatory autonomy of member states, the EU is supporting national efforts through data collection, capacity building, best practice identification, as well as cooperation and informative exchanges. The Canapool project thereby provides a great opportunity to shape evidence-based policy making in collaboration between regulators, researchers, and other market and civil society partnerships.
He did go on to say that the EUDA's limited competence in the wider EU bureaucracy means Canapool could be viewed as a promising box-ticking exercise. He added, it does represent a component of evidence-based policymaking, which is in line with accelerating regulatory development at the EU level.
Yeah, the EUDA has so far given little indication of the shape of the evolving project. In its response to Business of Cannabis, it stated that it will examine the pros and the cons of both homegrown and retail markets. Spawned from the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction, the EUDA was launched last year with an increased budget and remit.
It launched Canapool in June at a 2-day meeting with experts from the EU member states and its appointed project members RAND Europe and the Timbos Institute. During the first year of the 3-year project, these partners will undertake a data gathering exercise with EUDA, which EUDA say will involve approaching some 50 individuals or organizations across 10 or 12 countries to understand the problematics of existing or future policy implementation.
Yeah, this point was pursued by Stephen Murphy, who's the co-founder and CEO of Europe's leading events, media, and data business, Prohibition Partners. We welcome any attempt to create a harmonized and evidence-led framework for cannabis reform across Europe. But for Canapool to be effective, it must reflect the realities of the cannabis sector, he said.
Yeah. So far, the engagement process has been vague. Despite repeated offers from industry to contribute insights, there has been little clarity on who is being consulted or how stakeholder feedback will be integrated into the toolkit. Regulatory frameworks do not operate in a vacuum. They evolve in response to real-world market dynamics in countries like Switzerland. Regulators have worked closely with businesses, patients, and civil society to co-develop practical and forward-looking models.
Yeah, if Canapool is to avoid becoming a well-intentioned box-ticking exercise, it must ensure that dialogue with the industry is not just symbolic, but substantive. We hope EUDA and its partners will recognize that the success of any policy framework depends on the building it with those who are shaping the market every day.
EUDA says it envisions Canapool as the roadmap for member states looking to develop evidence-based adult use cannabis policy. It is not briefed to examine medical cannabis. Council will include analysis on the potential ways of structuring recreational cannabis legislation using homegrown examples from existing EU states according to the EUDA.
It will examine the benefits and pitfalls of using evidence from across the Atlantic, where it says the evaluation metrics of some of the recreational changes in the Americas have been poorly chosen. Closer to home, it will focus on some of the challenges reforming nations face, such as cultivation locations, banking, production volumes, and whether smoking should be permitted.
Ooh. EUDA also wants Canada to provide a legal framework for those countries that have no wish, as of now, to progress with recreational cannabis reform. Recent research in the EUDA found that respondents in over 2/3 of the EU member states, 19 out of 27, are in favor of recreational cannabis regulation.
Yeah. It also reports that across the EU, 53% of respondents are in favor of some form of regulation, although this number is down by some 9% over the last 3 years. A new paper by the United Nations Development Program entitled Development Dimensions of Drug Policy, assessing new challenges, uncovering opportunities, and addressing emerging issues, highlights the systematic failings of existing punitive global drug-controlled systems.
It contends the reform of these models is not only inevitable, but already happening, and highlights how much more than 500 million people already live in legal cannabis jurisdictions.
Yep.
So there's a problem. Yeah, I'm going to shut that story down as well. Another one that's long. But yeah, it makes sense. See, the EU was against, as far as like the people who govern all that stuff, they were against cannabis legalization. And slowly, but surely, Malta and other countries all started legalizing. Now they're seeing that more countries wanting to do it, so they're reacting. They're changing their policy on it. It sounds like a place that even if it's money driven, which I believe it is.
Oh, a lot of it is. Good. Who cares, right? Like the fact that they're finally getting on board. Like, I mean, the Netherlands have been arguing with the EU for ever, so like, I'm really excited for them. This is going to be a big change.
I'm glad that they've come up with something. It's like having it illegal at the European Union, but then having all those countries having it legal. This is set policy so that everybody can follow it and go from there. Make improvements to the system as they go along. So
of course.
All righty. Anything else you want to mention, bring up before we say goodbye?
Ooh, I don't think so. Have a great weekend, folks. We'll see you Monday.
All right. Yep, exactly. For my forecast in my area, we're looking at 28-degree weather. So not this frost stuff that we got last night. All right. Other than that, hey, Buddy Weeds, thanks for chiming in. Cheers. Have a great day as well. Thanks for tuning in to the program. And thanks to everybody else for tuning in the program, as well as to our sponsors, Limestone's City Hydroponics, as well as Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, where Rob, thanks for the comment there. Great stories, guys. That's where Rob got his, no, he didn't get his half of this, sorry. Wrong spot. And and At-Eze.ca. And as always, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.